Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Chloe Goodman, also known as the Beauty Queen Brat. I am so excited to hang out with you guys today. I have a great case. We're doing a crime video, doing my first crime video, and I'm super excited. At the beginning I was like, will I do crime? I don't know, because like I love Bailey Sarian and I feel like she's just got it down pat. Like, do I really even talk about it? Do I even have the right to talk about it? And I was like, let's see what happens. We're gonna talk about a serial killer. Good stuff, all fun stuff. So we're actually going to be talking about the Gilgo Beach serial killer, also known as the Long Island serial killer. And I'm just really excited to talk about this one because I actually did a research project on this killer when I was studying forensic back in college. And so I know a decent amount about the case, and it's just a really interesting and just a really depressing case. So if you thought last week's video was sad about Malaysia Airline Flight 370, then you're gonna find this one really depressing, but different realm of depressing. And also, I'm doing this new thing with my eyebrows. I'm doing like the soap eyebrows to kind of give it that more natural look. That being said, I worked with a pen, like an eyeliner pen, for like 20 minutes trying to get these done. So let me know if you like them, I guess. I don't know. Disclaimers for this week: we will be talking about murder. We don't really get into anything too in-depth about it, but there's going to be murder involved. And then the regular disclaimers: the information that I use in my video is not my own. I find it on sources such as Google, Wikipedia, YouTube, all the fun places. I'm not a makeup artist. If it comes out looking like crap, that's why. Sorry. Let's dive right into it, guys. I'm so excited, and I know I shouldn't be this excited about talking about murder, but I am. So the Gilgo Beach serial killer is an unidentified serial killer who killed between 10 and 16 sex workers over 20 years. He would dump their bodies along the south shore of Long Island, New York. I got foundation in my eye already. 1 second. Most victims were found along the Ocean Parkway in little beach towns such as Oak Beach and then Gilgo Beach. Both Gilgo Beach and Oak Beach are part of Suffolk County, and other remains were found in parts of Nassau County as well. 4 sets of remains would be found in December of 2010. These 4 sets would be known as the Gilgo 4, and then in the following year, in 2011, 6 more sets of remains would be found. Police believe that the 6 sets of remains that were found after the 4 sets actually predate the Gilgo 4. I'm not going to talk about most of the victims, but I am going to talk about one. The reason I'm not going to be talking about all the victims is I just feel weird doing it if I don't have permission to do so. I do feel like it is alright for me to talk about this one victim in particular, just because she's kind of the reason that these remains were found, and her story is just very important, and I feel like it's just very important to talk about her and her case. I hope that's okay. I hope people aren't like offended by that. It's not that I don't think the other victims are just as important, because I do. It's just Shannon's case is kind of what jump-started all of this. I can't really tell the case without talking about her. In May of 2010, Suffolk police were looking for a woman named Shannon Gilbert. Shannon Gilbert was 24 years old, and she was last seen working as an escort in Oak Beach, New York, until she ran away from a client stating that someone was trying to kill her. Her driver was waiting outside. His name was Michael Pack, or Pack, depending on how you say it. Sorry, I'm not great with names. He was waiting outside, but Shannon refused to get back in the car and go with him, so he kind of just left her and drove away because he was scared the police were gonna come, and he didn't want to get arrested for like helping a prostitute, I guess. So she ran away from Michael. Michael just sped off and was like, I don't want to get in trouble, and Shannon was never seen again. We will come back to Shannon, but Shannon is kind of what jump-started all of this. In December of 2010, a police officer and his dog were doing just like a training kind of thing along the beach, and that's when the first body was discovered. It was quickly discovered that this first body was not Shannon Gilbert, and once police realized that it was not Shannon, a search took part 2 days later, and 3 more bodies were found. 3 more bodies. All 3 of these bodies were found in the same place as the first body, which was on the north side of the Ocean Parkway. All 4 of the bodies were found in disintegrating burlap sacks. This was never confirmed by police, but it was leaked. So after these 4 bodies were found, Suffolk County decided to expand their search to the Nassau County border. They did this looking for more victims, and on April 11th of 2011, the search began. A set of remains was found, as well as a separate skull. This would bring the potential number of victims up to 10. Then on April 22nd, 2 human teeth were found about a foot away from where the skull was found. On June 16th, Suffolk police raised the reward from $5,000 to $25,000 for information that would lead to an arrest. This was the highest reward for information that was ever set in Suffolk County. By September 22nd of 2011, Suffolk County had received over 1,200 tips via email, phone calls, texts, and all that. That's a lot of tips. When a tip comes in, police have to follow the lead until it clears out, which that's a lot of work, and that's a lot of time to take up for a lead that doesn't go anywhere, doesn't lead anywhere. On November 29th, 2011, Suffolk County announced that they believed they had a serial killer on their hands, and that one person had been responsible for all 10 of these murders. And then on December 13th, 2011, police announced that they had found the remains of Shannon Gilbert in a marsh about a half a mile away from where she was last seen. Some of her clothes and her belongings were found in the vicinity about a week before she was found. This part pisses me off. Shannon was found in a marsh, and because of this, police think that she had drowned herself or something, that it was her own fault, basically saying that she had got turned around and there's probably just like passed out and drowned in this marsh. Because that makes sense. You don't have a serial killer on the loose, and sex workers' bodies aren't turning up left and right. Yeah, no, Shannon just drowned herself. Shannon just passed out and drowned herself. That makes the most sense. Luckily, Shannon's mom, Mary Gilbert, is a badass. There's actually a movie about Shannon's whole case on Netflix called Lost Girls, and the woman who plays Mary Gilbert is the same woman who plays Holly from The Office. She does a really good job, honestly. I think she does a really good job. So if you guys are interested in this case afterwards, you should definitely go check it out. The whole case of Shannon drowning herself doesn't make any sense, because Shannon was last seen banging on residents' doors asking for help, and she made a 911 call saying that she was fearing for her life. 911 call was never released to the public, and this has always been kind of a controversial thing, and the police never showed up, or it took them like 3 hours to show up. And we're kind of jumping all over the place, but like Shannon's case intertwines with everything that's going on with the Gilgo Beach serial killer. So if I'm jumping around, that's why. It's just there's a lot to get in, and Shannon, her timeline is basically the same timeline as the rest of the case and everything happening. That's why I'm jumping around, is because it's like her timeline and everything going on kind of coincide. And so I kind of have to tell the story kind of back to each other at the same time. And on December 10th of 2015, it was finally announced that the FBI was getting involved in the investigation. The day before this happened, former police commissioner James Burke had been indicted on multiple counts of police brutality, and James Burke will come back, but just remember James Burke. Just remember his name. We don't like James Burke. He's a piece of just remember his name. Well, Burke was suspected of having blocked the FBI's involvement for 4 years. Being like, no, we don't want your help. We'll figure it out. We don't want your help. Just, no, stay out of it. We don't want your help. Please, go away. Basically what James Burke was doing for 4 years. We're sitting on this case for 4 years because of James Burke. Just think about it like that. The FBI had previously assisted in searching for victims, but they were never involved in the investigation. So there are a lot of suspects and people of interest in this case, but no one's ever been arrested for any of the murders or anything. So the investigation is still ongoing, and there's still a lot kind of just being finally looked at by the FBI. Recently, the new Suffolk County Police Commissioner Geraldine Hart, she released to the public that this picture of a belt, and there's an inscription of either MH or HW, I believe, on it, and it's believed to have been handled by the perpetrator, the murderer, the bad guy, and it was not a possession of one of the victims, and that was as of last year. So they are still looking at the case, and they're still working on it, and there's still a lot to go through, and there's still a lot going on that we don't even know about, but it is ongoing, and it is an ongoing investigation. So my eye makeup looks really weird right now, but what I'm going to end up doing is like a smoky eye, like a red kind of smoky eye. So like bear with me for a minute, okay? I promise it'll be okay. I promise. When it came down to profiling who was doing these murders, it was believed to be a white male, mid-20 and midi 40, who was familiar with the South Shore of Long Island and had access to burlap sacks, as that's what a lot of victims were being found in. Mid-20 to I don't even know what a burlap sack is. No, I think I do. It's kind of like, it's like one of those, it's one of those things that you hop in. The corn race, is that what it's called? It's like a corn bag, like corn grain. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I think it is. I'll put a picture up. I will put a picture up right here what a burlap sack is. It's also believed that the suspect might have been involved in law enforcement or aware of law enforcement technique. This is how he was evading capture for so long. Now let's talk about suspects and people of interest. So let's start with who I think could have played a part in it, at least a small part, who's, I feel like, super obvious, is James Burke. Super obvious. Didn't even try to like really hide it. I don't know necessarily if he was the murderer. I don't even know if I necessarily believe that it was one murderer, but I definitely think he had something to do with it. He was just like a scummy, corrupt cop. There was no real good reason why he got promoted. He just did. He like knew people who were higher up and people who like owed him favors and stuff like that, but he was just a scummy scum. When I think of ACAB, I think of cops like James Burke. James Burke, like I said, he blocked the FBI from being involved in the investigation, which I didn't even know was possible. I didn't even know it was possible. I thought the FBI kind of just had jurisdiction over everything and they made the big decisions, but apparently our friend James Burke, he got the big boy say, "Don't touch my case. Leave my case alone. Don't touch it. It's mine." James was known to hire prostitutes and then request really rough sex, which, like, whatever, no kink shame, like, whatever, not a problem, but he would do it without their consent, which, like, nah, no honey, we don't do that here. And he would do such things like while on duty, and he just was a cop. he was just a bad person. So the reason that he got fired was because he had gotten arrested for beating the crap out of someone who had stolen a duffel bag full of drugs and porn out of the trunk of his car. And not only was it porn, it was snuff films. And the only reason we know it was snuff films is because the kid who had gotten the crap beat out of him had put DVD in and watched 2 minutes of it and was like, no, this is a snuff film. What happened was the police discovered who had stolen the duffel bag. And the reason this kid had stolen the duffel bag was because he was a drug addict looking for drugs. Sad. And they like knew he had done it because he was like he lived around there and he was just a usual suspect kind of person. And they came and picked him up. I should be doing makeup right now, I know, but I'm just too distracted. And picked him up and brought him back to the station, handcuffed him to the ground for 10 hours, and then in came James Burke and beat the living crap out of him. And the kid was like, I'm gonna tell them what they did. And they're like, and he was like, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna kill your family, no one's gonna listen to you, you're a drug addict, blah 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 blah. And it turns out somebody listened to this kid, and now he's in jail for only 46 months and then 3 years supervised probation. And there's a bunch of other stuff that we don't know about. Like, I hate this guy. He's like the epitome of everything that I hate. And so, yeah, that's James Burke. Well, Shannon Gilbert's lawyer, her family lawyer, met with a sex worker prostitute who knew of James Burke, and all the cops and all these people went to parties down at Oak Beach, which was like a really private area, which is where a lot of the remains were found. And they would have these parties, they would hire sex workers, they would have lots of drugs, and they just kind of do what they want. And this one prostitute said that she met James Burke and she was like, oh yeah, like he's cool or whatever. And so they went to the bathroom, she started performing oral sex on him, and then she started like crying and he like wouldn't stop. And so afterwards he like wasn't able to finish, and so he just like threw money at her and was like, whatever. And it's just an awful story. Like, fuck this guy. I know I shouldn't swear, but like, I hate him. I hate him. Even if he didn't do it, he's still gonna rot in hell. He's a terrible person and I hate him. And if you don't, turn off this video, because you don't, shut up. I don't want you watching my videos, okay? If you think that this guy is a decent human being, no, turn off my video right now. Do it. Turn it off right now. Do it. Okay, so that's one suspect. That's one boy. That's one guy. We have more. This guy we have is this guy named John Bitrolf. So John is also just a terrible person. John is actually in prison currently, living out 2 life sentences for murdering 2 sex workers in the area. And he's just a piece of crap. He was suspected in a 3rd murder as well, and at least in one of the Long Island serial killer cases. His MO was very similar to that of the Gilgo Beach killer, but they don't necessarily think that he was responsible for all of them, but a couple of them. Again, he's never been arrested or put on trial or convicted of these murders, so we can't say that he did them. We can't say James Burke did them, but James Burke is an extra level of horrible. Like, this guy's horrible. Like, he's a convicted murderer. He's a bad person. Like, he's going to rot in hell. But James Burke, in my mind, is almost worse, and I know that's probably not good, because like, this guy's a convicted murderer and James Burke is just a shite person. But like, I don't know, there's just something more. Like, he had this power, he had this duty to look over and protect his community, and he didn't. And this guy, you know, shouldn't murder people, but he didn't have that level of power, you know. sounds weird. I'm probably gonna cut a lot of this out because it's making me sound like a really weird person. I'm sorry if I'm doing most of my makeup off camera. I'm just talking a lot and I talk with my hands, so I can do both, but it's hard for me. So if I'm just like progressively getting my makeup done while I'm off camera, it's because I have really bad ADHD and can't like do 50 things at once, but want to be YouTube famous. So here I am. So I'm quickly trying to do my eye makeup off camera because I've done way too much talking and I'm running out makeup to talk time. And so I'm like, oh, let me just do a bunch of stuff off camera. So that brings us to our next suspect. His name is Joseph Brewer. So Joseph Brewer was Shannon Gilbert's client that night and was like technically the last person after Michael Pack. Everything I watched, it was something different, so I don't know. So he was technically the last person to officially have saw her, but Joseph Brewer was the man who had hired her. And Joseph said that after Shannon had been there for a couple minutes, she started acting like really erratic and just very like fidgety and needed to get out of there. And so she did. She left and she ran, and that's when she ran into like Michael, and he just ditched her. And so of course he was gonna be a suspect, but he got ruled out pretty quickly because there was no evidence of wrongdoing. I'm gonna quickly do my eyelashes off camera. I don't know why I'm making an announcement because I've done a bunch of stuff off camera, but I'm gonna do my eyelashes now just to keep you updated. Go get yourself a snack, go get yourself a drink, stay hydrated while I wait for my eyelash glue. Are these blue? I think these might be blue. Anyway, while I wait for my eyelash glue to set and I apply them to my eyes in a timely manner. Can't believe there's blue. So I did my eyelashes. Let's do them. Next up, we have Dr. Peter Hackett. Dr. Peter Hackett is a bit of a weirdo. Joseph Brewer and Dr. Peter Hackett are neighbors. And so Dr. Peter Hackett makes a phone call to Mary Gilbert, who is Shannon's mom, and is saying basically that he runs a wayward home for girls, and that Shannon is staying with him and that he's medicated her to like calm her down and that she's okay. Mary's a smart woman, and Mary's like, this is weird, like I'm calling the police. When Mary and her daughters went over to Dr. Hackett's house requesting to see Shannon, he acts all confused and is like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know who you are. I never called you. I don't know who your daughter is. Apparently Dr. Peter Hackett didn't know phone records are a thing. The police pull the phone records and they're like, all right, dude, like you called Mary Gilbert. And he's like, no, I didn't. Well, I've never seen her daughter. I don't know what happened to her, like blah, 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 blah. It's also important to mention that Mary was found in that marsh, right? And that marsh happened to be very close to Dr. Peter Hackett's backyard. Due to there being no evidence, they never arrested him. They never did anything about it. They're like, all right, well, there's no evidence, so we can't do anything. Gilbert family is in the middle of a civil suit against Hackett for a wrongful death suit, I believe it is. And lastly, we have James Bissett. James. So 2 days after Shannon's remains were found, James Bissett took his own life, and he also had access to burlap sacks. After Shannon was killed, Mary Gilbert, her mother, would remain an advocate for Shannon and the other girls murdered by the Gilgo Beach serial killer until the day she died. Sadly, Mary died on July 23rd, 2016, after her daughter Sarah stabbed her to death and ended up murdering her. Sarah is a diagnosed schizophrenic, and according to Sarah, what happened at the scene was voices told her to commit the crime and murder her own mother. Sarah was tried and sentenced to 25 years in prison. Sarah is currently serving that sentence at the Bedford Hills Correctional Facility for Women. Guys, here's the look. How do we like it? I actually really like it. I say that every time, but I really like it. Guys, that's all I have for you this week. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed the case. Again, it's an ongoing case, and I will actually put a link in my bio to the website where if you have any information about the case, you can go and submit it anonymously to the Suffolk County Police. So the Suffolk County Police Commissioner now is Geraldine Hart, and she seems great. She seems like she's very proactive. She seems like she's on top of it, and she's doing the best she can in her power. They're sending DNA from other victims that haven't been identified yet to genealogy labs to see if they can find like a relative or whatever to kind of connect them. And so she's just doing a lot of work, and she's really cool, and I really like her. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me. That's all I have for you this week. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please hit like and subscribe, and please feel free to share it with everyone you know, your grandma, your mom, your dad, your neighbor, guy down the street, your Amazon deliverer, ever. Just have them, you know, just tell them about me and be like, hey, you know that girl? And they'll be like, no. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, guys, this week. If you have any questions or concerns, please leave them in the comments below, as well as any recommendations if you have any. And I will see you next week. So have a great rest of your week, and we will meet again then. Thank you so much. Bye.